Good afternoon and welcome to this week's weekly livestock market update. I'm Brownfield Newsacre reporter Meghan Grebner. With us again is University of Missouri Scott Brown. Good afternoon, Scott.
Good afternoon, Megan.
As you can see, I am on the on the road again today, not in my typical office and location. And you've been pretty busy this week too. But one of the things that hasn't done a lot or hasn't been too busy this week has been the markets. Let's talk about what we've seen and what's been going on this week.
Yeah, so I think when you look across the markets, not a lot of new information out there for us to talk through this week. If we look at cash hogs for a minute, we have seen cash hogs move higher as we've gone through the week. If we look at the choice beef price for the week, we're up just slightly over a week ago. I will say a little up and down during the week, however, as we fell about $5 on that choice beef cutout from Tuesday through Thursday. But going to be flat for the week, and I think some of the same things we've been talking about in the past have been driving those choice beef prices. Pork cutouts also higher. You know, for a minute, I'll just remind us that hog prices keep moving higher. It's been a pretty good sign, and when you look at some of the stuff we've gotten from Iowa State University on returns, hog returns continue to stay positive, and I'm not certain when we started 2016 we'd be talking about positive returns all the way through June of this year already. So a nice run up, and again, I think feed costs are going to matter a lot when we look at the hog side as we move forward.
Scott, as we talk about did or did not happen this week, are we surprised as we head into next week, which looks to be a busy week on the report and the market update side?
Yeah, so I don't think we've just seen a lot of new information hit the markets this week, so I'm not surprised. I do think folks are, starting to look at things like what are we going to get out of cattle on feed next week. Hogs and pigs report will be a big one for us next Friday as well, getting a better sense of where we're at on sows and what kind of revisions we might be seeing from USDA or not seeing in terms of that hogs and pigs report. I think both of those are going to be critical for setting the stage on the supply side as we get into July this year.
Scott, as we talk about some of the other things that are going on, how is the weather and the crop markets coming into play as we look at livestock markets in correlation to both of them?
Yeah, so I think a lot of folks are trying to get a sense of where both corn and soybean markets go as we move ahead. We continue to see a lot of volatility in corn prices in particular, at least on the future side, as I think a lot of folks are sitting here going, the crop looks really good today in many parts of the country, but the crop needs rain. And what we get in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I think, are going to be critical. I think a lot of folks are still looking back to, as I recall, 2012. We were probably still sitting here in 2012 saying things look really good, and it was amazing how quickly we went from things looking really good to things being in terrible shape. So getting in a critical part of the growing season on many of these crops, and a lot of folks hoping for some rain. Looks like we might have some forecasted rain coming in the next 10 days, but we'll wait and see. So I think from a livestock perspective, that just gives us more uncertainty about where feed costs go. And hey, what's been at least a reasonable year when you look at profitability. Well, if we put a dry weather scenario in place, I think that's the one that doesn't make the livestock sector look very good for the remainder of 2016.
Scott, what's the best way for livestock producers to manage risk when it comes to inputs, as we look at the variability in corn and soybean prices, which has been pretty relentless so far this year?
Yeah, boy, you ask a really tough question, Megan. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all when it comes to price risk management on the input side. I will say producers need to make a decision about when it works for them and perhaps lock in some feed costs. You see a lot more diversification, I think, today than maybe we had 10 years ago in terms of folks wanting to, let's say, grow hogs and raise corn and or soybeans at the same time as a way to work through some of that price risk. I just remind us right now that we're at this critical point. So if you're going to make a chance to lock in, thinking that it's going to be a dry summer, don't wait till it's too late. I see a lot of sophisticated strategies out there that provide options for folks to either forward contract, use futures markets, etc. I tell producers all the time, make sure you do something that's comfortable for you in terms of risk management. Just because your farmer down the road picked a particular strategy doesn't necessarily mean that's the right one for you. Get comfortable. We're not trying to hit the bottom, the market bottom when we think about input prices, and I talk about market bottom from a corn and soybean meal standpoint. You know, if we all were really good at picking market bottoms on those inputs, I number one wouldn't be here with you Friday afternoon doing market outlook. I could find something else to do much better. So it is about risk management. It's not about hitting market bottoms or market tops.
So we talk about a big week, next big week reports. What are some of the things that we're looking at as we talk about the hogs and pigs reports?
Yeah, so I think when we look at hogs and pigs, it's going to be interesting just how many sows we've got, what's been happening to pigs per litter for this last quarter, what kind of revisions do we get from USDA, because this will really set the stage for what we're going to have in place as we move through the remainder of 2016. A lot of us are going to have to start thinking about, does that last quarter of 2016 get tight on the packing side? This is the report I think that can help answer some of those questions when we start looking at the hogs and pigs report. At least that's going to be my focus once that report's out next Friday.
Anything else? I know it's been a pretty quiet week, but anything else that we need to think about or look at today as we look at this week and heading into next week as well?
Well, I think you know, the other big report I'd talk about cattle on feed. You know, so we're going to get another shot of what's been really happening in terms of feedlot capacity and how many cattle we have on feed right now. I have a hunch we're going to continue to potentially see some bigger placements as we look at the data next Friday. I'm not going to be surprised for some of those to be continued calves coming off of wheat pretty late in the season that might give us some pretty heavyweight calves hitting the feed yard pretty quickly. That's the other big one that I think we need to really be paying attention to.
Well, we will definitely anticipate a great weekend and a great week.
Thank you very much, Megan.
All right. I'm Meghan Grebner for Brownfield.